How you doing? This is Sean McVeigh with Sean's Outdoor Adventures, and in this video, I'm going to give you some strategies for late season bow hunting. In this video, I'm just going to go over my strategy that I used in the late season for hunting in Pennsylvania this year, and hopefully some of these ideas can help you in planning out some of your late season hunts. Outside temp of 10 degrees. Maintenance required on the engine, and it's going to be cold. High of 15 today. Lord Jesus, please bless this hunt. Amen. Those of you who aren't familiar with the state of Pennsylvania, the seasons are lined up. You have archery hunting, then you have bear hunting season, then gun hunting season for deer, then there's a little gap, then just after Christmas the late season comes in. Typically, with the gun season in Pennsylvania, especially on public land, the deer kind of go in a lockdown mode and a lot of the movement becomes entirely nocturnal. Therefore, it is really crucial to stay away from the spots that you want to hunt in the late archery season as much as possible. I ran trail cameras in the late archery season going into the bear season, and I was focusing on two specific locations, two separate hunting locations nowhere near each other for using in the late season. Let me start by talking about the first location. The first location that I picked, I actually encountered this really nice 8-point late in regular archery season during the rut. I actually probably would have harvested this deer, but he caught movement when I was trying to reach over and get the video camera turned over so I could get footage of him, and he ended up turning and going back the way he came. So what I did after that is I set up a trail camera just to try to get some more information. And I got pictures right away of a decent 10-pointer, one that I had pictures of one time in the summertime. Now, let me roll these pictures again, and I want you to study the deer in the series of pictures. And what I noticed is the deer got spooked by the trail camera. You can see by the last picture he's backing up and he's turning to run away. That's the last picture I got of that deer on that camera, and I had it out for several weeks. Now I set up another camera about 100 yards away from this one, and I was getting good pictures on that one as well. Even into the gun season I was getting pictures, but they were all nocturnal. And again, that 10-pointer did get a look at the camera, and he didn't get too super spooked, but it was enough that I didn't get any more pictures of him at that camera. So here's an important point I just want to make, and that is, especially on public land, especially if it's a new location that you're putting up a camera, deer can definitely be sensitive to that. You can spook the deer and they could leave and not come back. So part of my game plan was to get information well before the late archery season and then take the cameras down with about 2 or 3 weeks remaining. So about a week into the gun season, Pennsylvania gun season, I took the cameras down at this spot and the other location that I'm going to tell you about, and just to try to let the deer cool off and calm down and get readjusted to nothing disturbing them in that area. Okay, so let me share with you the layout of what's taking place here. So the parking area is here, and about a half mile away from the parking area, there's a top of a ridge. So these lines represent topographic lines. It's fairly flat at first, and then as the lines get closer together, that just shows that the hill is increasing, and it's angle up, and then you have the top of the ridge, and then it's steep down the back side. So where I encountered the 8-pointer that I showed you that footage of in the late archery season, I was set up right about here on the side of the ridge. And I was expecting that day the deer to come up, but instead, and I mentioned this in my book, How to Be, Becoming a World-Class Hunter, a Bow Hunter Spiritual Journey, is you always have to be prepared for the deer to do even the opposite of what you expect. And the night that I encountered the 8-point, I did a little grunting because it was getting late in the hunt, and I figured we're in the rut, let's give it a try. And I actually called the buck in from over here, and he came in behind me, and he was about to come down a trail that went right past my tree. However, he was about eye level with me when he was on top of the ridge for where I was, and I went to reach over to get the video camera as he started to come. I thought his head was down as he started to come down the trail, but he must have picked his head back up as I was moving, and he saw that movement. So, and where I got the pictures of the 10-pointer was right over here. I put the trail camera there trying to see where that 8-pointer had come from. And then I had another camera set up right there that I got the 10-pointer on as well. So what I did is I had a new location. That 8-pointer, if I hadn't interrupted him, he probably would have come over the hill this way. And so I picked a tree stand location. Here's where my trail camera was, here's a tree, and here was another travel corridor that the animals were coming over. Here is the crucial part, especially for a late season hunt. You might only have one chance. I view it as it's once and done. I mean, I might get another hunt in there, but you have one chance to execute your plan and get in your stand undetected by the deer. And in Pennsylvania, hunting public land, as soon as you step foot on the ground, I don't care what footwear you have, as soon as you step foot on the ground, the deer knows you were there. And as soon as the deer that I hunt, as soon as they know that you were there, they're not coming back to that area, especially after all the pressure. So what I need to do, and let me use red just to help indicate this, here's my tree stand location. You can see where the parking area is. The easiest way to get to the tree stand location is actually, there's a way that I can get to the top of the ridge with an old hiking trail over there, and then I can come across the ridge and drop down into the stand. That's the easiest way because I have a hiking trail that I can use for part of the way. The difficult way is all of this is laurel. It's all laurel, so it's very difficult to get through. But I could get through it on an angle right to the tree stand. Now in the morning, I'm expecting the deer to come this way. Out of all the deer that I've that I've seen and harvested there, they're typically coming over the ridge this way. So what I want to do for my late season hunt is come, even though it's more difficult, come into the tree stand this way and kind of loop in and come straight at it, because I don't want these deer to cross where I stepped before I have a chance to shoot at them. That might sound extreme to some people, but in my experience hunting pressured deer, you have to take every precaution to not let them know you were there, even when it comes to getting, stepping your foot on the ground to get to your stand location. Going into the late archery season, just after Christmas, one of the challenges I had is I couldn't find my handheld GPS. With moving everything around for people coming to visit us and everything, I just couldn't find where it ended up. And so I loaded all of my waypoints onto an older GPS and I headed out hunting. Well, it turned out that they never actually saved. Although I told them the transfer failed. And I didn't discover that until I was hiking to the spot. I had the GPS turned on, and right about here, I was trying to pull up the waypoint, and it wasn't there. So what ended up happening is I came out, and I'm wandering through this thick laurel. I ended up over here, and I'm waiting for something. I was going to have to wait for daylight, I thought. So well, let me get to the top of the ridge and walk across the ridge until I see something that looks familiar. So I ended up coming up, and then it got to be daylight and I could see my tree stand location. I hiked back down in. So now I have really destroyed the whole area by the way I walked in. And at 8 o'clock in the morning, I did hear a deer snorting somewhere right in here. It probably smelled where I walked, was hanging around, and at that point in time, the wind was blowing that way. So it winded me as well, and it just started snorting. Didn't see any deer. So
cold, no movement.
In a certain sense, I felt as though I ruined that spot. If anything, I got to give it a week. In my mind, I got to give it a week, and maybe I'll try it again. All right, now I just want to talk about my second location for a little bit, and then we'll go back to the last example in a minute. So the second location, what we have here is a real long ridge. If you ever have been in Pennsylvania, there's lots of long ridged mountains. So, it can run for miles and miles and miles, some of the ridges. In this scenario, the parking area is all the way off the screen this way. And the spot that I want to hunt, so toward the end of the ridge, there's a bench area. That's what this is depicting right here. And what the deer like to do in this location is, whether they're coming from this way or this way or this way or this way, they like to come and hug the back of the bench. Okay, so actually the buck I shot in Pennsylvania last year, I shot right at the top of this, right at this middle high point right here. And the challenge, and I hunted that this year in the rut, and I did have a 6-pointer go right underneath me. And the 6-pointer that went right underneath me this year, and here, I'll grab the antlers. This 8-pointer that I harvested last year at this location, I had to walk past the primary trail that they travel on in order to get to the only tree I could get up in a climber. It wasn't the ideal location, but it was the only location that I could get. And from the parking area to this is about 1.7 miles. So carrying hang-on and portable climbing sticks is a little bit too much for this particular location. So I was like, I'll just hunt that tree. Anyway, so having to go, even if I jump, you're still going to end up leaving scent. Also, I'm in there in the dark, so it's hard to see where that deer trail is in the dark. It's not like super pronounced, but I know it's there. And so no matter what, I'm going to end up leaving scent. So what I decided to do for the late season is come down here on this, where it's dropped, the hill drops off, and look for a location on this side of the trail so that I can come in from the parking area and go right to the tree and never set foot or jump over the trail or anything like that. So I did locate a tree that I could get up in down on that side. And another reason why I wanted to try there is I couldn't get video footage of it, but a nice 8-pointer, probably about in the 120s as far as size of the rack. While I was in this tree stand, he came up this way and went on an angle that way, and I couldn't get a shot at him. He was just out of range, and the video camera was on the other side of the tree. And this was a few days after I had spooked that 8-pointer at the other spot because it saw me trying to get the camera on it. And I was like, I'm not making that mistake again. So he was about 40 yards away going through here, but he went down. So I thought, if I can maybe get in a stand location, I'll catch that type of movement in this little funneling area right here going down that hillside. So I set up a trail camera just to get some information at this location, and I was definitely getting deer movement. I was getting bucks going by there as well. And as soon as the Pennsylvania bear season came in, it went totally dry. I mean, it went 100% dry. Nothing was moving in over there. Oh, I should also say there's a little valley here, and then it goes up another hill, another ridge over there. And I set up a camera. Actually, it was back farther, back that way. I set up a camera in a far location back there, and I got 2 nice bucks over there. And the one 8-pointer might even be the one that I encountered here during the late archery season. I'm not positive. But anyway, that spot to get to that was over 2 miles. And it just, for a late season hunt, it was a little too much. So I was just going to focus on this spot. But anyway, this spot went completely dry as soon as the bear season came in. So I pulled my camera out about mid-gun season, and still I wasn't really getting any activity on it. So my game plan is simply to, in the late archery season, when the wind's right, when I have a wind coming this direction, I'm going to come in from the parking area and make my way to that stand. I did do that. There was some snow on the ground, and there were some tracks right around the tree that I got in, that you could see that were in the snow from days before. But I didn't end up seeing anything on the morning that I sat there. So I had to roll the dice and take a chance by pulling the camera out, but having the camera in can and at times does spook deer. So as part of my game plan for hunting public land in the late season was to keep the cameras out, stay away from the areas I plan to hunt, and try to execute my approach by not stepping in an area where the deer are going to smell before I have a shot at them. All right, so let's go back to the other location. And as you remember, the parking area was here, my tree stand location was here, and the ridge top was here. And a lot of the deer activity is back and forth, mostly this way and this way. But I knew from some of the deer sign that there was deer that traveled this way and this way. There was a trail out in front of me, only about 15 yards, that had good sign of deer traveling this way. So what I decided to do is I gave this spot a week, and then I went one more time, and the conditions were really rough. I mean, the time that I sat at the last location that I just showed you,
7 degrees. No movement at all. Freezing my butt off.
and so these are really difficult hunts to sit for long periods of time in like single digit temperatures, sub-zero with the wind chill, things like that. Rocking out at 4 degrees this morning. Not looking forward to this. Why do we do this type of thing to ourselves? That's what I want to know. So what I decided to do on this hunt, my last attempt for the year, was I was going to take that hiking trail to the top of the ridge, across the ridge, but intentionally I was going to cut down and then come into the stand like this, hoping that if the deer did come that trail, I could still get a shot, like one of my shot windows before they detected where I had walked. And now I got my regular GPS back. I found it. So I execute my approach perfectly in my mind. And in the morning at about 8 o'clock, I did see a glimpse of a deer moving down through some thick stuff here. I didn't get any video footage. Plus I was looking right into the sun, so it was pretty bright. But a little while later, I did have deer come across this way, only the deer came across on a trail lower on the hill from where I was at. So they were a little out of range. There was doe with 2 fawns, and I was just looking for a buck anyway. But doe with 2 fawns, and then a little while later, a spike came through on the same trail. And then a little while after that, I wasn't able to get video footage of it, but I had a deer coming straight up the hill, and then it angled over to here. So I really felt like, this was a good area, one that I wanted to look at, going into the future. And so when I got down, I actually fought through the laurel to get over there, and my foot got hung up on the laurel and I fell, and I had pulled the stand down, and I had the stand and about 6 or 7 portable climbing sticks. It was a lot of weight, and when I fell, they came over my head, and one of the climbing stick feet thing hit the yoke cable on my bow and broke it. So that really messed me up quite a bit, as far as getting the bow, a new cable on there, and getting it tuned back up. So anyway, I walked over here, but because that had me so upset, I was like, I'll just come back another time. I marked the general area, and I'll go back maybe next summer, even put some trail cameras up. And then I carried the trail across the hillside, the ridge side, that the deer had come on. And I found some locations that I had marked in my GPS before that had good cross trails. So in the future, I thought, okay, these are some areas I want to focus on in the future. And that's one thing I recommend. I always recommend trying to go out a different way they came in. And I really wasn't worried about spooking this because this was pretty much my last hunt of the year. I was limited on how much I could get out. So it's good information to get. And I ended up, yesterday was the last day of the Pennsylvania late archery season. So I ended up going back and sitting here, but the conditions were not right. Terrible wind. I mean, the wind was blowing straight like this most of the time, and the deer I was expecting to come were going to come from that way, and so I didn't see anything. But, you're not going to get a deer sitting on the couch, so I figured let's just go out. It's the last day of the season. All right, so those were my strategies, and I felt good to even encounter deer on public land in Pennsylvania in the mountains after all the hunting pressure. But I want to just throw out a few key points to keep in mind, and when you're establishing a setup. The reason why I chose these 2 locations is, one, I thought the hunting pressure would be minimal in those areas because they're a little bit obscure. Not too many people think to look at some of the places that I go and look at based off of maps. And so that was one thing. I didn't think there'd be too many people in those exact locations. But the second, and this is a big reason, is, let's just say, I thought there would be lower hunting pressure. Another thing is, especially in Pennsylvania this time of year, we're getting snow on the ground. And although the deer will dig through the snow and through the leaves to get at acorns, they do turn a lot of their attention to browsing on brush type stuff. So, you know, the thicker, brushier areas that have good browse material, like young oaks or maple trees is especially what I look for. Those are the areas that I kind of want to set up in the late season when there's snow on the ground and the deer need to eat something. So thick areas that have good browse material, like I said, white oaks, saplings, and maple tree saplings, things like that, that they can nibble on those twigs to get their nourishment. And an adult doe will eat 7 to 9 pounds of browse in a day. So one last thing to keep in mind too would be good bedding area. So the last time I went out, I tried to pick a position that was in the thick areas but also had some hemlocks nearby, because especially when it's snowing in that inclement weather, the deer do like to hang out under those trees. As you can see by this footage, these deer bedded down underneath this little hemlock tree trying to wait for this particular snowstorm to pass. So if you can find an area that has some good pine trees where the branches are up high enough that the deer can get in under there to bed and get out quick and easy. That's the other thing too, is they need to be able to jump up and run quick and easy if they need to. So having the bottom branches several feet off the ground is something very helpful to look for when you're looking for an evergreen species of tree that they can get under for bedding. I mean, they could crawl into others as well that are lower to the ground, but deer, they like to be able to get up and go if they need to. So look for ones like in this situation where the lowest branches are several feet off the ground. So if you can locate an area that has stuff like that to protect the deer, especially in snowy regions, that's a good area to kind of focus in on and be near, because the deer are going to be going to and coming from those, especially right before and right after storms. So I hope there's been a couple tips in here that you found somewhat helpful. I know that some of this doesn't apply necessarily in your warmer climates, but you know, like that last tip as far as the snow, but they will also go in there in heavy rainstorms and things like that. And the other tips, one of the biggest ones being, try to be meticulous in your approach to your tree stand locations, and also try to minimally use your tree stand locations. Once a week at the most is what I'll do in the late season for a particular tree stand. Thanks again for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, share my videos, things like that. You can help me out by doing that and help me reach my current goal, which is 100,000 subscribers. Until next time, take care and God bless.